Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. You can find my books. They're available there, as well as blogs. You can find the books on Amazon, Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, and Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children, as well as Raised by These Wolves Volume 2, Child Trafficking Through Foster Care and the Court Systems, that should be out possibly July 15th. Feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. I've got a brand new guest. I'm so happy to have Theo Chino on. He is a legal management consultant. He's an MBA, and he's a member of the Dupage County, Illinois Bar Association. And I welcome you, Theo Chino. How did you get into all this?
Oh boy. Wow. Yeah. Well, I do want to first start off by saying, don't do anything I say. This is not legal advice. And
Right.
furthermore, here's the real thing now. I just realized this after 6 years and $500,000 of education. Nothing is good legal advice. There is no such thing. So, and one thing I do want to remind everybody is I don't push my religious beliefs on anybody, but it makes me feel good to know that God's everywhere, always, right? And another thing that a lot of people who are in this space that we're in now, that none of us wanted to be in, is I realized that our blood is the only real thing of value on this earth given to us by God.
Mhm.
And nobody other than God has the right to take away what God gave us. My mother lost her father when she was 2. God took my grandfather from my mother, and she was raised with just one parent in the house, and then lots of loving family and uncles around her, right?
Mhm.
But this was not an ideal situation, right? But this was God's choosing. He took my grandfather. Now you have some people who want to step in and take away what I personally believe, don't want to push on anyone, what God gave us,
Mhm.
right? So I'll start with I have an ex-buddy, Johnny. Johnny would do anything for an extra buck.
Mhm.
And he didn't feel good unless he was sticking it to someone.
Mm.
So I think if Johnny saw how these family law people operate, he would be waffling between either renting an ambulance, dressing up like a paramedic, pulling over when there's a family just laying on the side of the road, destroyed and devastated from an accident, pretending to help them, rob them, and then walk away and going, "This is all your fault." Or even better, he could go into family law because he couldn't get in trouble for the stuff that they do, which is very similar. So let's talk about family law. Beautiful concept in concept, right? Think
Oh,
about this.
until it's abolished, that'd be great.
Right, right. Well, I mean, but think about the concept though. This is how
Okay.
they sell you, okay? This
Mhm.
is the false advertising. Hey, your family's going through a rough time, right? Wow. Well, you know what? You can go to a bunch of experts in the family courts, right? In the domestic relations division. That sounds really
Oh,
efficient.
oh,
And
really?
these
Yeah.
Right. And these people are highly educated, Marianne. They have
Mm.
law degrees and they're professional. They hold up their hand and they take oaths and they have things called ethics they have to abide by.
But sometimes people are so
And
smart they're stupid.
yes, well, you know what? Those people are way too smart because this is how they sell themselves.
Mhm.
So you're supposed to go into this court with this other person that you, let's say, made children with that you just can't get along with. And these very smart people are going to sit you down and walk you through a civil process in a very organized manner so that nothing horrible has to take place, so that you can resolve your differences. How beautiful is that? That's beautiful, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's all false advertising.
Mhm.
They can't do that. No one can do that, right? So what's actually happening? I mean, how did I get into this? So 6 years ago, I mean, I knew about these people and I kind of felt the way I feel about them. I still feel about them the way I feel about some guys that I know some guys who are involved in some things. And it's like, it's always better to know who those people are and have them not know who you are,
Mhm.
right? That's how I felt about those people. And then, long story, we get sucked into this scam, right? And then what I realized 6 years later is when I walked into what is called the domestic relations division,
Oh.
no one told me this, but I was implicitly surrendering God-given constitutional rights. Just like when you walk onto a boat or a plane, nobody tells you this, but implicitly you're suspending or surrendering your constitutional rights. So there we go. And it's all a family law courtroom. But what it really is, when you look at it, is a large RICO scam operation designed to look like a legitimate court,
Mhm.
complete with ushers with real guns. So you got a family court improv theater going on, right? And you have this little playground for all these damaged egos and these people who want to feel like they're important and want to drive better cars than everyone, and they want their kids to go to better schools than everyone. And honestly, if you have problems with somebody you made kids with, as dumb as this sounds, you would be 1,000 times better off going on the Jerry Springer show. Just met someone who used to work on the show, and embarrassing the person you made kids with on national TV, because at least you get a hotel room.
Mhm.
You get some money, I guess, out of this, right?
Mhm.
So what happens next is you walk into this domestic relations division in these courts, and there's someone wearing a robe. One of my dreams is I want to wear a robe to court
Oh,
and
yeah.
just see what they say. Excuse me, sir, what is that? It's a robe. Well, why are you wearing a robe? It's like I identify as a judge,
Oh, yeah. Why not?
right? Why not? And then, I could even ask them, like, you have immunity, right? Yeah, I want immunity too. How do I get that? Right. And
Well,
then I'd say, well, go ahead.
if you're identifying as a judge, then you would have immunity, except if you were a doily, then you would be identifying as a female judge.
Oh, even better. I'm thinking that might even go better for me. Right.
Right.
And, so now, you walk into this courtroom though, and you're being told this is a real court of law. All right. And you feel like a little kid who's in big trouble and is being sent to the principal's office. And they got that big scary seal there. They have the bench sitting high up. This person's wearing a robe. And the real scary part is, yes, there are ushers known as bailiffs in the room with guns, and a lot of them. And so I'm a second degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, right? And Michael Caruso, who couldn't be here with us today, said, "How did you do that?" And I said, "It's real simple. I had nothing better to do. I didn't know how to fix cars. I didn't play golf. All I did was just kept on going back to the mats, right?
Mhm.
And I'm looking at these bailiffs, and what's really scary is I'm pretty sure none of them know how to effectively and safely restrain someone. And they're carrying a gun. And that's for real scary now. All right. So, but the worst trick that they pull on you in these domestic relations divisions courts is
Extortion.
yes, extortion, right? And everybody's working together, not when they're trying to get your retainer, but after they get your retainer, everybody's working together to make you feel guilty for not being a perfect parent.
Mhm.
And then what the next worst trick they'll do to most people, I'd say probably 98, 99% of the people that walk in these courts, is they will get you to help them skin yourself alive for them.
Mhm.
All right. We're way beyond that point, right? We're not that dumb anymore.
Mhm.
But we've also uncovered different layers of resistance. My favorite thing that people say too is they go, but what if there's abuse? It's like,
Oh.
oh, you know what? What should happen if there's abuse to children going on? And it's like, well, those people shouldn't be anywhere near the children. I'm like, exactly. Thank you for proving my point, because these family court officers of the family court, these whatever, they are part of a worldwide global network that abuses children on a large scale. I'm not saying all of them do it, but I'm saying that most of them have at least turned a blind eye, have at least looked away when they knew something bad was happening to
Mhm.
children. So, what should be done to these people that are either complicit or actively abusing children? Well, how about this? How about we round them all up and lock them up and impound all their stuff and let them prove their innocence? Because I'm not saying they're all bad, Marianne,
Mhm. Mhm.
but 99% of them make the rest of them look bad.
Well,
I've seen.
Right. And we had to prove we were innocent when we were being looked at as guilty.
Correct. How is that constitutional?
Hmm.
So here's a good one for you. I had someone call the courthouse and they wanted to talk to someone in the domestic relations division. And they said, hey, can you answer some simple questions about which jurisdiction this domestic relations division falls under? And they could not point this person to anyone who could answer that question. You know what they said? You might want to consult a lawyer about that. It's like, hang on a second. I'm calling you. You are in the domestic relations division of like the 18th Judicial Circuit, blah, blah, blah. You can't answer a simple question of what jurisdiction your domestic relations division is in. This is the first thing where you go, uh-oh,
Yeah.
this is really, this is wild now.
Mhm.
This really sounds crazy. But what's really crazy is actually believing that these people are who and what they say they are. That's what's actually crazy. Now, everybody else who knows the truth about them sounds crazy to everyone else who hasn't yet been bitten and torn up by these people yet, right? So do this. Don't believe me. You don't know who I am, right?
Mm.
How about you go to AI? A lot of information out there. And you ask them about what is a license to practice law? They'll start to give you standard answers. And as you ask more, you'll find out. Like if you ask, is it legal to practice law without a bar membership? Because really what it all boils down to is when you're part of the bar, you're part of this union.
Mhm.
And unions are very much tied up with, hmm, I'm from Chicago. Do we have to say it out loud?
What,
Right?
mafia?
Oh, right?
Oh,
The
because I'm
mafia.
half Italian, and I mean the mafia treats their family better than the family court would.
Correct. I mean, I always tell people, I'm like, hey, as far as I know, the mafia is a myth. It was just invented by the government so they could terrorize and rob hardworking immigrants like Al Capone. Okay. He was just a hardworking immigrant. Okay. He didn't pay his taxes. Did that make him a bad American? Nowadays, I'm starting to think maybe not.
Mhm.
But anyway, I want to stay out of jail. So that, the old IRS joke, knock, knock, who's there? The IRS. What do you want? We're here to protect you from what? From what we're going to do to you if you don't pay us, right? So
Mhm.
this is very similar to our experience now.
Mhm.
So next thing is this. When you ask, you go, well, what is practicing law? What is practicing medicine? Oh my goodness, what is practicing jujitsu? It's like
Mhm.
you walk up to me and you're like, Theodore Chino, you've been coaching jujitsu for 30 plus years? Oh my gosh, you must know everything. And I'm like, no, I don't. I do not. You must be awesome at everything. No, I am not. I'm telling you right now. And then how about if you knew that you were going to walk into a cage for jujitsu lessons? They were going to lock the door on you, and you're being told no one in that cage has to follow the rules except for you. You're the only one who's going to get punished for not following the rules. Would you want to walk in that cage? That is what walking into family court is like, right?
Mhm.
And so now here's the next thing. Well, don't walk in there.
No.
Well, that'd be nice if you and the other person that made kids together realized it and said, hey, whatever we got to do to stay out of that place, we're going to do it, right? But what happens is someone dragged your kids into that cage, and now you have to walk in that cage and
Mhm.
take this merciless, unlawful, unconstitutional, savage beating. And they'll find out how much you could take, and then they'll just take it an inch further, right? So
Mhm.
you say, like, how much is my divorce going to cost? It's like, well, let's see that financial affidavit. Well, whoa, woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be about 5,000 hours worth of work. It's like, how do you know? It's like, well, I just saw how much money you're worth. I mean, your case is very complicated,
Uh-huh.
right? So
Complex.
ask AI about Title IV defunding tied to family court judge pensions. At first, you're going to get some vanilla answers and then dig in just a little bit more and say, no, I heard that's not true. And then you'll start to see that there are conflicts of interest all over the place. For
Mhm.
example, why would you're a judge now? You're wearing the robe. You're sitting up there. You have all the power, right? Like the song goes, I got the power.
Mhm.
Well, guess what? Those judges sometimes do a little too much drinky.
Yep.
It happened quite a few times here in DuPage County. I mean, come on. They have immunity. You know what? If I gave you immunity, Marianne, good of a person as you're trying to be, how long would it take to turn you into a total monster, right? When you just knew that you could never get in trouble for anything ever, you'd start to slip just a little bit here and there. And eventually, it might take 1,000 years. You would turn into a monster if you had immunity, right?
I have integrity.
Eventually.
Wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You would probably say, knowing that having total immunity would turn me into a monster, I'm going to pass on the immunity. I don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be able to do anything I want to anybody and not get in trouble for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of these judges do a lot of drinky, and they do lots of other
Ew.
naughty things that they shouldn't be doing. And sometimes they lose their seat on the bench and they need to go work somewhere. And if they were nice to somebody and they helped somebody make their job a lot easier, maybe they'll have a job for them. And that's happened. We have judges working in local law firms, working as guardian ad litems. They were removed from the bench because they did too much drinky. They should be in jail
Mm-hmm.
for decades for what they did. Instead, they get to go into private practice and they get to be alone with your kids in a room. And a judge will look at you and say, "Who are you?" Last I checked, I'm the mother. I'm the father. They're like, "You're not an officer of this court." And this guardian ad litem, such a fancy Latin term, right?
Mm-hmm.
This person's allowed to be alone in a room with your kid, and you aren't.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that same local law office that I'm thinking about was involved in being one of the 3 law officers that took close to $2.6 million in PPP loans, Paycheck Protection Program loans, during the pandemic, during a time when people were wrapped around their building saying, "Get me out of this marriage. I can't be in this marriage even one extra day." During the time when Zoom court and e-filing took off, where their businesses, according to them, were booming. In this very office, we had a guardian ad litem who is now being fed by me and all the other taxpayers in Illinois. He is doing time for doing something horrible. It was a Class X felony. This person was allowed to be alone in a room with young children. And this person committed, allegedly at the time when they were hired by this firm, a horrible act on someone under the age of 13.
Mm-hmm.
This all goes on in lovely, calm DuPage County. I mean, it's a beautiful day. It's so calm. I don't hear any gunshots. I don't hear any screaming. It's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful here, but there's so much going on. So what else did I see? A couple walking up the other day in court, holding hands, all lovey-dovey, walking in front of the judge on the 3rd floor of the DuPage County courthouse, telling the judge, "Guess what? We want to call off our divorce." And the judge is like, "No." And they're like, "What do you mean no? Like, can we just stop this? Like, we decided to patch things up." "No, I need to send you downstairs. We can't take any more time off of work. We already spent so much money on lawyers. We had to fire our lawyers." No, we're going to have to set up another date. You're going to have to go downstairs and ask permission to turn off your own divorce. So what are we walking into there? You know what? I witnessed someone who had to ask permission from his lawyer to speak in front of the judge about his case. Now, when you think about that, it's like, okay, I get it. Because your lawyer's there to kind of protect you from not saying something stupid and incriminating yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get that, right? But it's like, whoa, I have surrendered my rights to someone who belongs to the bar.
Mm-hmm.
I right now am like a ward. I'm not even like an adult anymore
Mm-mm.
with rights. So let's talk about civil procedures. I don't know. Let's say somebody looked at me funny and I want to sue them. Because you've heard the whole thing. You can indict a ham sandwich or sue a ham sandwich. Well, that person looked at me funny and I want to sue them for $12 million. Well, what would happen in a civil court, in a real authentic court? Well, it would be brought before a judge, and a lot of times the first thing would be, this person's defense would be, "Hey, this is ridiculous. Can we just get this kicked? Why do I have to incur huge legal fees because this person thinks that I looked at them and now I owe them $12 million, right?" Well, that doesn't happen in family court. Someone can walk in and say, "We have irreconcilable differences. Thank you, Ronald Reagan. From what I understand, he had a big hand in that one. Um, so that's the cause for legal action. It's like, so you have a cause for legal action. Yes. So what is it? Well, I can't tell you. Irreconcilable differences.
Mhm.
And law firms have used this against their clients when they're trying to drop their client a month before a trial's coming.
Mm.
After the law firm grossly mishandled their case, grossly overcharged them. I'm getting to the good part at the end. And they said irreconcilable differences. Oh, you want more money. That's what you want? Oh, well, we don't want to say that in a court pleading, though. No one would ever want to sign up with our law office again, right?
Mhm.
So, 10-day trial? Where's the dead body? Where's where's the building that's been blown up or something, or the bridge, right?
Mhm.
How about this? Were you ever asked to waive the jury trial option? No. See,
Mhm.
these are all signs that maybe you are in an unconstitutional improv theater playground for entitled people that call themselves lawyers and all of their associates. So, what's the first thing family law officers want to see when they engage you? A financial affidavit.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Why? I mean, don't you act all of a sudden when you have lots of money, they turn on the caring. And when you don't have any money, they go away, you're bothering me, you're wasting my time, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So what you're really doing is you're hiring criminals to help you with your family's problems.
Mhm.
All right. The beginning of The Godfather, the little guy comes to him about his daughter getting
Mhm.
beaten up by these savages. And the Godfather's like, you never wanted to be my friend until now. Now you come to me?
Mhm.
He's like, I'll tell you what, someday I'll ask for a favor. I'm going to do this favor for you. Right. And so now what we're doing here is I've partnered with a local divorce coach who she kind of wants to have this big unveiling of kind of a reboot of her business. So we're going to wait on naming that service, but also young Caruso in Colorado. Michael Caruso couldn't be here with us today.
Mhm.
But what young Caruso essentially does when you strip past everything that they do is cost management. And we've partnered with a legal billing analysis expert. And what we're coming up with is customized reports. We have someone who charges a pretty, it's a couple of $1,000 retainer, maybe more depending on how many legal bills you have. And he's like an actual, right? An actual lawyer who does these analyses. We do have a cheaper option where we kind of do a pre-look first, a pre-analysis to let just so you can, for a few $100s, to let you decide what you want to do to see if you have anything. But
Mhm.
what we've found in these reports is that sometimes 70% of these bills are fluff and should not have been charged. And we catch all kinds of things. One of my favorites was when someone who had nothing to do with someone's case at all, we said, what's this person's name doing on your guardian ad litem's bill? I don't know. Let's call him up. Hey, what are you doing on this bill? They said, I don't know. Hey, you're running for Dupage County Board, aren't you? Yes. Do you know this person who's issuing this bill? Oh, yeah, they're a great friend of mine. And I'm like, I bet they are.
Mhm.
And then we go, wait a minute. So how do you think your name got on this bill? What's this $65 for? And they go, must be a glitch. I'm like, I wonder how many more times this glitch happened, right? Just
Yeah.
little like things that make you go, right? How about the lady in Colorado who spent $1.2 million on her legal bills? She's now living in a shed in her ex's backyard. It's a pretty nice shed. This guy's got $9 million. It's got to be a nice shed, right? But she's still living in a shed and allowed to see her child whenever her ex allows her to see her child. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I thought these courts hated men. No, 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 no. What I've found is I think the when everybody who's part of this network, because there is no such thing as no conflict of interest when you're dealing with people in the family court or the domestic relations division, they're all part of the same bar. There you go.
Mhm.
That's the smoking gun. If you can say, okay, we don't have a conflict of interest, like, yes, you do. You're all connected. You're all part of the same bar. I've heard lawyers tell me, oh, well, that's bad, but I'm not going after them. It's like, well, why not? Oh, you know what's going to happen to me? I'm like, what? And then it goes silent, right? I might get disbarred. It's like, that's why people get disbarred, not because they do bad things to their clients. or they victimize people, it's when they turn on their fellow bar members. So now you have this lady who maybe has been overcharged $800,000 in legal fees. And I said, hey, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. It's real simple. Just call them up and say, I think you overcharged me. Can we sit down and go over these bills line by line by line? And then one of the next things they'll do is, well, your contract says that if you didn't challenge it within 5 days. Well, I was too emotionally distraught to go over my bills then. And I don't think this contract was actually legal. I should have actually, think about this, you should have consulted a lawyer about a contract that a lawyer was giving you that you were trusting with your family. They're making you sign an illegal contract. And so let's sit down and talk about those bills. Well, I don't have time for that. How about another one? Family got charged $500,000, no criminal activity, no drugs, no beating, not even cheating. They got fed to this golden donut mafia that I call. And they were fed to that mafia by a marriage counselor who was a great marriage counselor until that marriage counselor found out that they owned a nice home, free and clear, in a very nice neighborhood. And then immediately flipped from marriage counselor to divorce client wrangler. How about another $500,000? And a judge that had to recuse himself due to unconstitutional violations. There's a guy who was hauling millions of dollars of military equipment for years. And now all of a sudden, because of a false allegation with no proof, he not only lost access to his home, his child lost access to his father for 9 months straight. He lost the right to protect himself. He says, I lost my gun rights. I'm like, no. They're telling you that you are not allowed to protect yourself anymore. If someone actually feels threatened, maybe the court should give the person who says they're threatened a gun and a gun license, right? Maybe they should provide them security with all that sweet Title 4D money that comes flowing in to the system, because there are real victims out there, and usually they're too afraid to say anything. I know this, right? I see the people who really should be crying. Like I see it on the jujitsu mats all the time. There are people who really should be crying because somebody was getting a little too rough and mean, and they're like, no, I deserve that. It's like, no, that's not how we're supposed to play here. And then I see other people cry babying who are actually the actual perpetrators, and they're the mean ones, right? I've seen $25,000 in GAL, guardian ad litem, kind of like PRE in Colorado, and attorney's fees removed from bills, just because finally one of the members of the bar said, this has gone too far. What is going on here? You're dropping this guy because he owes you money, but I just cut you overbilling him close to $18,000. What do you want to do here? How about $8,000 on a bill settled in the hallway before they went into the arbitration room? How does that sound to you? It's like, and if you just don't fight, you're just handing everything over to them. Why? For what? Did you get something that you really liked? Were you happy with the product? Now, how about this? How about someone who goes back 5 years and calls up a law firm and says, hey, I have a question about my bill. That was a long time ago. And this person says, that's okay, I don't mind. They're like, yeah, but we mind. It's like, well, I don't mind that you mind. Can we talk about this bill? Right? And then they're like, we're too busy. What's your address? We'll just mail you a check. 5 years after this. These are real stories, and I can back them up. So how about this one? A judge who's being either fooled into or actively conspiring to steal a home that was purchased after a divorce, 9 years after a divorce. So what we're doing right now is we're compiling data for class action suits based on attorneys charging hundreds of hours on days when they're in court. Oh, I've got it. I was multitasking. Really? I think that everybody that was charged that day for work, this one attorney is charging 100 hours for that day while they're in court. I think everybody should get together and say, I am not happy with the quality of your work on that day, and I want a full refund. So what about, well, you remember poor Poland before World War II broke out? A guy named Adolf and a guy named Joseph shook hands, and they didn't trust each other. They didn't like each other, but they were just slobbering because you know why? because poor little Poland was sitting right in between them. And as long as they got together, they could just smash them and squeeze all the juice out of them. You know what the brave Polish cavalry did? Because that's all they had. They weren't mechanized. They were so brave that they charged these tanks head on.
Oh.
And they died horribly to prove to us what won't work. But you know what worked by accident? When those Panzer treads got jammed up, a simple thing like that, like hitting them from the side.
Mm.
So maybe we need to marginally disrupt this family court mob just a little bit every day. Maybe we need to jam up their tank treads. Maybe we need to hide in attics and write really sad letters about them, like Anne Frank did while she was hiding before they came and got her. And maybe we need to look more into fighting those fraudulent bills, because what we're doing with these little cheap, unofficial pre-look bill analyses is we're also designing custom complaints to the state bar
Mm-hmm.
and custom complaints to the FTC. And depending on how upset one of our potential clients is, we'll do our very best to support them. A lot of people are too torn up, too
Mm-hmm.
beat up, too traumatized to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So we are willing to do our best to hold them up. I just want to tell people how to do it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And like I said, nothing I've said here is any kind of legal advice. I recommend not doing anything I say, right? But you know what? Look into this for yourself. And maybe what I'm telling you today will lead to an even better idea on how to maybe get some of these people, and I use that word very loosely, that work in the family court mob system to behave themselves a little bit more and to really make more room for the people who actually want to help people going through a traumatizing, emotionally unstable point in their family's history.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have, Marianne?
Yeah, I agree. I think that would even help abolish it because it really serves no earthly purpose but to destroy parents and children's lives on an hourly basis.
you're you're not wrong. I mean, people will say abolish the family courts, but we need them. And I'm like,
Oh,
no, no, we do not. It's like, but what's going to happen if there's an abusive parent? It's like, when has a super lawyer, this is a real thing, by the way, look it up, a
right.
super lawyer flown in with their cape and saved some children that were strapped into a minivan by their mother? You
Mm.
remember that case in Texas? That are sinking to the bottom of a pond or a river because her new love interest said he doesn't like kids. When has that super
Ah,
lawyer come in and lifted that van out of the river? When has a judge with immunity, super immunity, flown out and caught a baby who was being thrown out of a building by an unstable parent? It's never happened, ever, right? CPS, they keep children safe. I am not condoning looking the other way when children are in unsafe, bad situations, but I am definitely not condoning putting children into what we know is an unsafe situation, right?
right.
So, whatever we can do to help parents to work together, calm down, to whatever, I
Mhm.
love how, you know, um, one woman used to say, "We'll never argue in front of the children."
Mm,
And the husband was like, "Uh, that's not how I grew up. I heard it all, right?"
right.
And she said, "So did I, and we're gonna do it different." And they managed to do it different for a long time until one day they just didn't anymore, right? But parents are they're gonna mess up on a daily basis.
Hmm.
They're gonna, I love when kids tell their parents, "You're embarrassing me, Dad. Mom, you just embarrassed me." It's like, and I always joke and I go, that's kind of a parent's job, right?
Yeah.
It's like That's why we're there. Keep you in check and keep you just, maybe not looking so cool in front of your friends. Maybe just checking in on you to see what you're up to, right?
Right.
And then someday the kids will check in on the parents and be like, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you up on that ladder on the roof for? You're 87. Get down right now, right?" This is what family's about,
And
right?
people have to wake up to this. And
Yes.
this is a very scary thing because people don't realize what they're walking into when they walk into an already rigged system.
Right. And it's all, it's so funny because at the end, I just heard about this case the other day. The judge looks at the couple, they've been bled dry, there's nothing left. So of course, the lawyers are saying we got to wrap this up. They say we have to wrap it up. And by the way, when they say this is all in the best interest of the children, they're not lying, but they're not telling you whose children it's in the best interest of. It's not in the best interest of the litigants' children. It's in the best interest of the lawyer's children. And they go, we need to wrap this up. And the judge looks at the couple and goes, hey, I am not the lifestyle police.
Mm-hmm.
Really? You couldn't have told those parents that, like, let's say $800,000 ago?
Right.
I mean, before that happened? So, I mean, your point is right. I mean, you're talking about abolishing family court. Yeah, I mean, if there was a crime committed, if someone grabbed someone by the throat and crushed their throat, like for real, and they went to the hospital and their throat was crushed, that's a crime, last I checked, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's something going on, horrible scars on children and things like that, okay, last I checked, that's crime. If somebody's stealing money out of a bank account that belongs to both of you, then really you put them on that bank account, so it belongs to both of you and they took it. And lesson learned, you and
Mm-hmm.
you're married, you don't have to have joint bank accounts. All right, so they stole 10 grand from you. Is that a reason to burn them up and not let them see their kids anymore? How about, oh, they cheated on you? Oh, they embarrassed you. Well, you know what? I'm going to show you. I'm going to damage your child by limiting your access to your child. Oh, wow. Not good.
Mm-mm.
One thing I wanted to show too was, I don't know if you can see this book. Can you see what it is?
Oh, yes. Whistleblower in Paris.
Yes. Leon Cozio, may he rest in peace. He fought so hard to turn things around. He tried to go the legislative route. He tried to organize rallies. He passed away last year, I heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the details, but he was heartbroken. He was alienated from his children. I hope his children hear this someday, because the thing that broke his heart the most was just not knowing how his daughters were doing.
Mm-hmm.
According to him, I don't know anything of what really happened, but he told me the whole sad story. This book is really something, because when you read this book, you go, wow. I mean, he hit a lot of ugly branches on an ugly, ugly tree called the family court system. And so going to these people to straighten out your family's problems, not a great idea.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Finding a good there, first of all, finding a good, level-headed family member, that might be a start.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it just makes a bigger mess. Finding a good therapist who comes well recommended. Finding someone in your church, finding someone in your groups, right? That maybe could just give you advice on how to stay calm and weather the storm.
Mm-hmm.
Every relationship is kind of like, I like to say every relationship is like a nice ski slope. One of those
Mm-hmm.
really fancy. You ever see sometimes they're like, hey, how's it going? It's like, shh. It's like, what's wrong? Snow's really high. It's like, you mean if I go like this, you cause an avalanche and everybody's gonna die? It's like, yes, don't do that. Every relationship goes through those times.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's sensitive times where you should try to be sensitive. You
Mm-hmm.
should try to calm down. I always say breathe and pray, or breathe and meditate, whatever you want to do there. Do that first
Mm-hmm.
and then decide what you have to do. But going to attorneys who practice
Mm-hmm.
family law, wow, what could go wrong? Well, call us. We'll tell you what could go wrong. And if you already made that mistake or someone dragged you into it, call us, because maybe there's something you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have, Marion. What else do you have to finish off with?
Wow. Well, I don't want to suck up your whole afternoon because I could go on, but because I'd like to have you back on And
Gotcha.
we could talk some more about, sociopathic judges and lawyers that identify with each other that keep the case going and draw it out.
Well, you're really onto something, because I really believe when I see that a judge really heavily sided with one parent over the other in the family court system, I'm like, you know what? I think I know possibly who not the bad parent is, but maybe the less capable parent is. It's all, and so there's the targeted parent, and
Mhm,
usually that targeted parent is the parent who is genuinely concerned, who is genuinely more reasonable in regard to the children. And I think a lot of times you talked about, I mean, everybody's a narcissist nowadays, but now when you become enough of a narcissist, you slide into being sociopathic. And when you get away with being a sociopath, what do you slide into next? A psychopath. And I think a lot of these people who gravitate and stay in this fake realm of law, um, this family improv theater court, they are the sociopathic, psychopathic people who, when they meet another one of them, they go, well, I'm not getting anywhere with this person. We got to beat up on the more reasonable person.
mhm,
So
mhm,
this is where, when you see who the judge sided with, you go, oh, I think I know
mhm,
not who the bad parent is, because that's a parent, right? And the children deserve to know their parents and who
mhm,
they really are, right? And but who the less capable parent is. They really need the good parent out of the way, because once the good parent's out of the way, well, guess what? They can do whatever they want,
mhm.
right? So you hit on something really big there. So we really could talk for a long time. I mean, Leon in his book talks about a horrific episode where a judge impregnated someone in his chambers who was a litigant in one of the cases he was seeing. I don't know if this is true or not. Leon talked about it in his book, right? Dr. Pappas talks about all these crazy goings on and everything else. But maybe it's time to talk about background checks
Mhm,
and
mhm,
psych checks,
mhm.
and
Drug and
maybe
alcohol.
find
Yeah.
drug and alcohol, not for the parents, but for the bar members involved in the case.
Mm.
That should be standard. What about posters in every courtroom going, hey, do you think your lawyer was unethical? Call the state bar at blah, blah, blah. Do you feel like your judge has less than a judicial temperament? Call and submit a judicial inquiry board complaint at blah, blah, blah. How come those posters aren't up? Why? Things that make you go, right?
Well, you had talked about in the beginning, you were talking about God and these people that drink a lot. Well, I have a story. I'll make it quick because I don't want
Do
to
it.
get too
I
long.
love it.
All right. So the day the judge took my kids away, which was March 2nd, 2015, I said, God, deal with him because he won't recuse himself. I don't know. He's running it like a three-ring circus, and I'm not kidding you. I've never seen anything like this. One minute he's talking about child support, then he's talking about child custody, then he's going on about a retirement pension. It's like, can we stay on one topic for at least half an hour? And so I just, what are you gonna do? They they mock you in court. They treat you bad. So I say, God, you deal with them. So on March 2nd of 2017. I get a call from one of my friends and she said, "Hey, did you see the news?" I said, "No, because I'm trying to enjoy myself at the mall, petting the puppy dogs." And she said, "Your judge died." Moment of silence. Okay, anyway.
Yeah,
So yeah, so God works in mysterious ways. Maybe not to our timing, but to the day.
right. And it's that judge probably had a lot going on.
Oh, yes, he died of pancreatitis. Whoops.
Well, whoops. And it's funny because maybe that judge wasn't even capable of making decisions in his or her own life. And now they've been entrusted with, and I love how these litigants, it's like I always tell them, I'm like, hey, get over yourself. You are just one of the links in a sausage factory.
Yeah.
These judges don't remember your name. They're just like, next, next. They're bored out of their minds. They're just sick of just sitting there. They're just doing their time so they can collect their pensions funded by indirectly, of course.
Yeah.
Title 4D, which is, and we could talk about that. That could be
Oh,
a
we're
whole
going
show
to.
topic.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna have a couple of shows coming down the pike. I know it. I'm so glad I had
But
you on.
it's great to connect with you finally. Like, we've interacted a lot on just messages and things like that. But, we're learning a lot, right? And it's like we, at the end of the day, I had one of my partners actually say, I said, what would you like to see happen with the custody of your child? Because see, in my head, child support means when I say, hey, you got to support your child, you know what that means? It means spending time with them and feeding them and taking care of them,
Mhm.
right? And it's like, what would you like in terms of time with your child? He goes, I don't know. What do you think? I said, you know what I think? I think that you shouldn't care what I or anyone else thinks. I think you need to think long and hard about what you think is best for your kid. He goes,
Mhm.
but you're so smart. You've seen so much of this. And I'm like, no. I go, I listened to your situation. I've seen a lot of people go through a lot of stuff. I've been through some of it myself. I mean, I'm recognized as a full and equal parent.
Mhm. Mhm.
It only cost a $500,000 in legal fees,
Mhm.
right? It was only 2.5 years in court, and there was nothing. There's no, like I said, no dead body, no blown up building. I wasn't part of 9/11. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, what in the world? And I'm recognized as a full equal parent. And the parenting schedule is what it is now.
Mhm.
And it's things have calmed down considerably. And I know now, when I look back at the rubble and the path of destruction, I see all of the predatory behaviors. And people are like, my ex is the worst person in the world. And I'm like, no, no, they aren't. These people that work in that family court
Oh, yeah.
system,
Uh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the clerks especially, and that's another podcast we'll have to talk about. But, how can people reach you if they have any questions? Are you there?
Can you hear me?
I
Yeah.
can hear you. I can
Yeah,
hear.
I'm back.
How
So
can people
yeah,
reach
one of
you?
my children was trying to contact.
Oh,
Yeah. So you can contact you can look up Young Caruso. They're located in Colorado. You can email mcaruso at youngcaruso.com. And that's a good starting point. You can just text me at 630-205-2466. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Theodore, aka Theo Chino, and we can talk, and I can kind of route you to the right people.
awesome. Awesome. I didn't mean to cut you off because I heard you say my child.
Yes, yes, yes. No, so my child was actually calling me just now.
Oh,
So
oh, then we better get off.
you see, they need me.
Okay,
Wow. And
good.
it only it only took a $500,000 in 2.5 years in court
Oh my God. Yeah, I know
to
it.
realize that, oh, these children need their dad and their mom, or their mom and their dad. Wow. Wow.
Hard to
Right?
believe.
Right? Wow. It's just amazing how it took almost exactly the amount of money that we had to burn up to figure that out, which we had figured out before we contacted them. Strange,
Mhm.
isn't it?
Mhm.
So let's talk about your legal bills, whether they're ongoing, whether they're in the past. Let's just see, because I think legal bills can tell a lot. And I've seen some really good people who are family law practitioners. And we have some good people to refer you to. If not today, maybe tomorrow in various states. So we're networking. I mean, there are good people out there who do an honest day's work. They get paid a lot of money. And there's very few of them that are actually good at what they do.
Mhm.
But they get paid a lot of money, and they should be very good at what they do. And most of them are horrible. And
Yeah.
all they're very good at is collecting those retainers,
Mhm.
right? And terrorizing people to pay their bills.
Right before Christmas.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know somebody who went through something like that?
Oh, maybe.
Wow. Wow. My favorite move of all time though is before the judge has ruled on the custody of your children, your former lawyers are coming out of the woodwork and making you look horrible in front of that judge because they want to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Can we say extortion, boys and
Oh,
girls?
yes, yes.
I mean, they've got you. And they're going, think about this, they're going after you for, let's say, I don't know, 10,000, less than $10,000. Shouldn't this be maybe going to small claims court? No, they have to go in front of the judge who hasn't yet ruled on the custody situation for your children.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. Well, hey, don't jump off because I'm going to have you back.
I'm not okay with this. So yeah, yeah. So we'll talk more. I mean, we have a lot to dig into.
Okay, don't jump off. Salam the Gavel is a
Okay.
podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption. And you can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, other platforms I don't know about. And feel free to buy me a coffee and help keep these podcasts going. Thank you so much, Theo Chino. Thank you.
Ciao.